Hey, everybody. Welcome to our very first, I guess we're going to call it an episode or a podcast for the Writer's Block. I am so excited to present this platform, and tonight I wanted to go live with a few of my favorite clients. They are all authors of amazing works, amazing books, and as you are coming in, say hello, send up a greeting, let us know where you are watching from. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to introduce our amazing cast of authors, if you will. But first, I will introduce myself. I am Dana Tyler. I am an author, editor, and instructor for So You Think You Are a Writer. I am so excited to present to you just a few of my favorite clients. Now, if you happen to be one of my clients and you're watching now, don't be upset that you didn't make the first show. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you. But these four authors happen to be just a few of my favorite clients. They have written some amazing books. We have Dr. Joel Trout, who just finished his amazing ebook, The Road Trip. Wave at the people. We have Dr. Well, maybe, I don't know, Dr. Lawrence Scott. And he has written an amazing book called Bleed a While. Now, I know it sounds kind of gruesome, but it is actually an amazing leadership book. It is so cool. It's just so cool. Then we have George Moore, AKA The Machine, and he has written a book called New Words for a New You. And then last but not least, we have Miss Lanita Walker, who has written an amazing journal, devotional. Actually, she's got two. Amazing journal, devotional called You've Got the Power. You have the power. I'm going to let them all say hey.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. Hello, everyone. If you're a writer, you need to share this. Make sure you guys share this with all of your writer friends, all your authors, everybody. Go share this now. This is going to be good.
This is going to be good because if you are an aspiring writer, we have some great tips for you. We've got some exciting things to share with you. And this is what I'm going to do. Just because we seem to be having a little bit of sound trouble and all of that stuff, I hope you guys come on in. I hope you guys share, put up that hashtag share once you have done it. And if you are tuning in on the YouTube, make sure you have subscribed to Ask Me TV. So that's one of the things that I get asked a lot is like, what's my writing process? How did I get started? All of those wonderful things. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce Miss Lanita. I'm going to unmute your mic and I'm going to mute my mic. And you tell us a little bit about your work. We want to know what your book is, what inspired you to write it, and just give us a little bit about your writing process.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Lanita, like Dana said earlier. My first book, which we'll call The Baby, the one that took me the longest to give birth to, it's called You Have the Power, and it is a prompted journal. For me, I have found that writing has been very therapeutic. So what I wanted to do was create an outlet or a place where people who sometimes just need to have an outlet, a creative outlet, a safe place is what I call it. So I created a prompted journal. The prompts are extremely personal to me. They're all based on either something I've gone through or something I've survived or something God gave me, but was intentional in prompting the reader to create thoughts in them, to then be able to put pen to paper. And it's a very personal piece of writing for me because I had it written for a very long time, but was just terrified to go beyond looking at the words on a screen. So it's called You Have the Power, and I'm very excited that it is doing very well.
Can't hear you, Dana.
We can't hear you, Dana.
It's talking to me.
I'm sorry.
There we
So
go.
my mic was muted. George David. You know I unmuted your mic, so I was coming to you next.
Okay.
You wrote an amazing book. I'm sorry, George David, aka The Machine. You wrote an amazing book called New Words for a New You. Tell us about that.
Well, New Words for a New You is my first book and my only book so far. It's a book about affirmations. Affirmation is a statement or a process that affirms something to be true. When you affirm something, you validate it. And when you validate something, you give that thing legal permission to exist. So, in other words, your words give things legal permission to exist. And so, what I found out personally is that many of us are suffering or we're thriving because of the words that we speak. So, this book is a 30-day journal of affirmations or new words that you should use in your everyday practice. We wrote an affirmation, we did an explanation to the affirmation, and then I believe we even attached an exercise to help make that affirmation come to pass. So that's my book. I'm excited that I was able to write it with you, and I believe it's really going to help somebody.
It really is. Now, Lawrence Scott, you are our West Point man.
I guess so.
You wrote an amazing book called Bleed a While.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Bleed a While. As Dana said earlier, it does sound a little gruesome, but there is a there's a reason behind that. So as Dana said, I went to West Point, and one of the things that I had the privilege of doing while I was there was playing on the football team. And there's a lot that goes into that. I'll skip that, but I had the opportunity over the last 2 years to serve as the director of player development for the football team at West Point. So while there, I started working on this project called Bleed a While, and it was birthed from a statement or an old song that was adapted from a poem written about an old Dutch sailor by the name of Andrew Barton. And Andrew Barton was a guy who, by no stretch of the imagination, he was a fighter. Okay, and there was songs written about him because of the way he fought. And there was a song written about how he was deeply entrenched in war by himself, and he only rested to bleed a while, get up and fight some more. And he was a great guy, right? So they wrote songs about him. And then there was this chant that we say with the football team that we would say before football games that my head coach now would say, that says, I fight until I can't fight anymore. And when I can't fight anymore, I'll lie down, bleed a while, get up, and fight some more. So Dana, there was this one day that he was doing the chant, and it's an emphatic thing, right? So like we're getting hyped before the game, all the guys are going rah rah, and there was this one particular day before the game where he was doing the chant, and he said he was stuck on bleed a while, right? So he said, when I can't fight no more, the guys respond, they say, when I can't fight no more. He said, I'll lie down, they repeat it, and then he says, and then I'll bleed a while. And the guys say, I'll bleed a while. And then he goes, bleed a while. And they go, bleed a while. He keeps saying it, bleed a while, bleed a while, bleed a while. And in my mind, so I'm a comedian at heart, and in my mind, I'm like, Coach, you keep bleeding, you're gonna bleed out. We got to go play this game. So it was at that moment that the idea for this book was born. And the concept is this, that there are a lot of times when we're going through life that we have situations that pop up where we are bleeding, we're hurt. But the thing that I noticed about the chant was there was nothing in between bleed a while. The very next statement was, I'll get up and fight some more. So the implied thing is, while you were lying there bleeding, there was some sort of healing process taking place that enabled you to be strong enough to get up and fight some more. So what I did was I started to put some of the things that I knew my players were dealing with in life, whether it's stress, leadership, all these different things, and just gave them some practical tools and wisdom on how they can bleed a while, heal, get up and fight some more. So that's That's the concept of the book. That's where it was born. So it's really it's not gruesome. It's really helpful.
It is very helpful. It was one of my favorite reads. Like I said, all of you guys are beautiful writers, and I don't say that lightly. When I say you're a beautiful writer, please take it as a compliment. I know, George David, you have a little bit of problem with grammar, but your content rocks. And I know you don't mind me saying that. And now we're going to hear from the indefatigable Joel David Trout. That's my favorite word that you use all the time. Tell us about your book.
Okay, it's called The Road Trip, and it was birthed out of a sermon series I did in a summer, and I needed something thematic to kind of take the people on a journey. And my brain works this way. I look at things that are complicated and try to simplify it. So something as simple as signs on the road. And so the book, The Road Trip, actually is about the signs that we see every day and the corollary spiritual messages that we can derive out of the actual signs. You know, preachers can get a message out of a rock or a ant or a blade of grass on the ground. So, and so this series began. I started it in Atlanta and I finished it in LA actually. And so each chapter deals with a certain theme, like stop, yield, construction, ahead, go. And so one of the lines is your disease and dysfunction must give way in deference to your destination. And that was talking about the 10 lepers and how that they were instructed by Jesus to go and show yourself to the priest. And so while they went, they were healed. So it's deriving messages from things that we see in the signs. There's a scripture in Psalm 74 that this brief phrase that says, "We see not our signs." And so this is saying, stop, take a look at these signs.
I love it. Now, we'll stick with you, Bishop Trout. I'm gonna go back between calling you Bishop or Doctor or what have you, but we'll stick with you. Tell us just a little bit about your writing process.
Well, I might be an outlier with this group, but I basically finished this book in 2017 and carried it around on a flash drive for almost 5 years. Yeah,
What?
sitting on a flash drive and put the finishing touches on it about a month ago. And it occurred to me, just get it out. I had published a book several years ago, and I've written like 10 forwards on different books, including Bishop Mark Moore's book. I wrote one of the forwards on his. So I carried it around, and I had a rush of inspiration, and I wrote it, and I wrote it, and then I shut it down and just got it out this year. How about that?
Gotcha. George David, we're coming to you.
Yes,
Tell us
ma'am.
a little bit about your writing process, because you're not typically a writer, you're more of a speaker.
Right. Well, to understand my writing process, I think you need to understand my story behind why I wrote my book. The year was 2015, and I believe it was November, and Christmas time was coming. And I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, I need some extra money this year for Christmas, and I need to know what I can do fast." My dad looked over at me real quick and said, "Hey, write a book." I was like, "Write a book? Like that fast? We just gonna write a book? Christmas money?" I called Dana. I said, "Dana, I have an idea. I'm gonna do a book on affirmations. It's something I talk about a lot. I always tell people change how they speak, change how they speak." And so I had an idea, and between November, I think the week before Thanksgiving, and the week before Christmas, we wrote a book really fast. So my process is more of an inspirational thing. During this quarantine period, I suffered a bit of depression when it first started, like a lot of people. Um, didn't feel inspired to do much of anything. Before this whole pandemic broke out, I had a lot of plans. I had a lot of goals. I had a lot of things I was working towards. And due to the virus, it shifted my patterns. And when my patterns were shifted, my productivity was shifted. And so it took me a while. I'm just now getting to a point now where I'm ready to create again because I'm inspired. So my process is usually based in how inspired I am at the moment. If I'm not too inspired, I don't do a lot of writing. So when I'm inspired, it's a go. And that particular year, I had Christmas on my mind, so it was time to write.
I believe you bought me a gift that year as well. I love it. Your motivation was for writing was I got to buy some Christmas presents.
I got some people I love, man.
That wasn't my motivation for getting you to write, though. I didn't want a Christmas present. Lanita, tell us a little bit about your writing process. What inspired you to write You Have the Power?
The biggest thing for me then and now, as there are other books that are sort of churning inside, is it involves a lot of silence because God is always speaking. So there are notes on the back of gum wrappers, napkins, Post-it notes. At one point, I had to keep pen and paper next to my bed because literally he could speak at any time, and it just looks like a bunch of words, but when they need to, they sort of come together. So it's always been really important to me, even when I didn't understand what it meant, that whatever space I occupied, that there was somebody in that space that was encouraged by something that I said. And so when I realized that was an avenue where God was sort of taking me down, I was like, oh, that's what you're doing. So it just became important to me to encourage people sort of as I went, whether it was a kind word or a stern word, but all involving words. So I needed to be able to put that on paper so that it could last more and I could move on to something else. So I'm inspired by so many different things. And my method is a little all over the place, but it always comes together when it's time.
I love that. That's one of the things I try to tell people, especially if they really want to write, because some people call me and they say they want to write, but they really just want to waste my time. And so I have learned to start charging for that time. But what I tell people who are writers is that you should try to write a little bit every day. And what I encourage people who want to become published authors to do is to start doing, like you said, keep a journal or a notebook next to you, because you never know when you're going to get inspired. Oh, yeah. And it's so important to kind of organize those thoughts, because as the Lord is giving you things, even though he's a creative God, God is a God of order. So when it gets time to write the vision and make it plain so that others can read it and run with it, it's got to have some sort of order to it. Right. And it's really cool to, like, recognize sometimes how therapeutic writing is. And sometimes the writing is for you, but sometimes the writing is for others.
Yeah. You can actually be you find yourself actually reading what you've written and it's like, oh, I actually did write that. And then you become inspired by what you've written.
Right. Now, Lawrence, I'm coming to you. It's taking me a little bit of time to navigate this thing, so I'm unmuting your mic. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your writing process.
So for those of you watching, Dana and I had this conversation a while ago when we were working through this book, but I did not believe in my writing, to be quite honest. When I had written it, I wrote it for my players. That's all it was for. It was a project for the football team. I wanted to, the issue for me was, well, let me start with not the issue, but the inspiration. The inspiration was seeing my players struggling with things, and they would come to talk to me about them. And knowing that there was someone else coming into the room, I'd have to turn guys away because I'm still dealing with the other issue. And I started to see that some of their things were recurring around the same things. So I wanted to have a way to communicate with them without communicating with them, a way that they could get help, or have a resource that they could go to, rather than it costing me the time to help them right then and there. So that's why I started writing. Now, in terms of turning it around, I know, Bishop, you said that you carried it around on a flash drive. Well, I was like that too. I'd written it and I put it in like some 8.5 by 11 papers, folded them up and handed them out to players. And really, for me, when I was handing them out, I was really doing it because I didn't really trust it. I was kind of testing it out to say, is this good stuff? And the guys kept asking for more and more and more. And it was at that point that I'd reached out to Dana. And my issue was kind of some traumatic experiences when I was younger that made me not have faith in my writing. I grew up loving writing. To be quite honest, a lot of people talk about the way that I communicate when I speak. I think I'm probably a better writer than I am a speaker. And I grew up writing, whether it was poetry, prose, it didn't matter. I just loved to write. And when I was in college, my freshman year English professor, he was a born and raised Texan, and he did not look like me. I think I'll leave it there. And he didn't affirm my writing at all. He tried to fail me, and that didn't work. And he kept instilling this thought in my head that, like, you're not really that good of a writer. And it took some other
He was
professors.
wrong. Let me just tell you, he was absolutely wrong. You are a beautiful, beautiful writer.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate that.
But you know what? I do want to ask this: did any of you? Now, I know not the great and wonderful, Bishop Joel Trout, but have you all ever felt insecure about your writing?
My biggest,
Me too.
my biggest insecurity was, and what kept me holding on to that piece for so long was, who will want to read something that I wrote? I mean, who am I to the general, to the world? And that's when God continued to tell me, if you do what I ask you to do, if you're obedient to what I've said, I'll take care of the rest. You know who your audience is and you speak to them, but if you just do this, let me handle the rest. So absolutely, insecurity, like a lot.
Yeah, Dana, despite what you just said, I've had insecurity. One is because I might be maybe the third or fourth best writer in my family. And because I've read so many writers over the years, I'm always comparing myself to Arthur Pink and Ravi Zacharias and them. So consequently, a book wouldn't come out because it just wasn't perfect enough. So I just had to basically say, I'm gonna release it. I'm just gonna get it out and worry about all that later. But oh no, I have insecurity about my writing.
So that's good to know that even someone as erudite and prolific a speaker as you and such a great writer has those kind of issues. Now, actually, guys, we're winding down for our time. This has been a really great conversation. Despite a couple of technical difficulties, I'm going to unmute you and ask you all to give our listeners, our potential authors, some parting words. And we'll start with you, Bishop Trout.
Remember this: Margaret Mitchell, Harper Lee, both wrote one book that was published. Margaret wrote Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind.
Harper Lee wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. One book that was published. I would say this: it's not what you're working on, it's what's working on you.
I love it.
And if it's working on you, that's where you go. That's where you release. Because we get stuck because we're working on it. But when it's working on you, you can't help but get it out.
I love
So
it.
find out what's really working on you, and it won't let you go. That's the book.
I love it. Lanita?
One thing I would sort of say to an aspiring writer is that if God is giving you a book, and if He, whatever your gift is, whatever that gift is, and it's in you, He will nudge you, and it will continually sort of run in your mind, in your heart. You won't rest. He will push you into it. You just have to want to do it. So if you know that God is telling you that you are meant to be a published author and you need to write, you need to go ahead and just do it. Just do it.
Just do it and call Dana Tyler.
Yes, add that. You made it so easy, Dana.
Oh, thank you. You made it easy too because your writing is so beautiful. And again, you had really great content. I will say this, in reading all of your work, I kind of felt bad taking your money just a little bit because I got to read such amazing content and I got to be inspired and motivated. And honestly, Lanita, I think your project was probably the funnest thing. I think your project got me doing journals. And man, and I did
Yeah.
your, like, not to toot my own horn, but beep, because your journal was so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to do journals now. I think
Yeah.
I think I got your project done in like 3 days because I was so
You
excited.
did. It was 3 days. It was
You scared
so
both me
easy.
and you.
I wonder what had taken me so long.
I love it. I love it. All right, George David, I'm coming to you.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
are your parting words for any aspiring writers?
Well, I would say that you need to find what's most natural to you. Um, it's important that you be yourself through your writing. Um, I, I think that you should not try to be someone else or try to do what you think would work.
Mm.
I think you have to do what's natural because people can tell when you're being genuine. People can tell when you are being the real, authentic you. If you're not naturally funny, don't try to write a funny book. You know, if you're not good with words or eloquent like some, don't try to use the biggest words that you don't really understand what they mean. Don't do it. You know, be yourself, be natural, and there's an audience for you. So when you're yourself, you will find that there will be people who will gravitate towards you and who will support you and they will love you and it'll be a beautiful thing.
That is a really excellent point because I cannot tell you how many times I have seen manuscripts with people trying to use words that are not a part of their normal vocabulary, just
I don't
trying to
expect
sound
that.
smart.
So I can't be out here just writing anything. I got to stay in my range. I got to stay in my range. I got to stay in my
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Lawrence, we're coming to you. What are your parting words for our aspiring authors?
Well, it's all been said by all of these wonderful panelists, but I think I would want to emphasize something that my bro George just said. There is an audience for you. I think a lot of times we, as Bishop Trout said, start to compare ourselves to other people. We start to look at how they write. We start to look at even people that we enjoy, and we start to try to say, well, I mean, they do so well at what they do. How could I do anything like that? But the key is that you're not supposed to. The key is that you're supposed to do what you do. And this is something that I had to overcome a little bit because I thought when I wrote this project that I was writing it for football players. And it took a little nudging from Dana to tell me, yo, this is not just for football players. And here's the thing that I'll leave for all of you aspiring writers out there who don't know, maybe you don't know yet who your audience is, you're trying to figure all that stuff out. Here's what I'll leave you with. If you just choose to do what's inside of you, if you just choose to take what you have and put it on paper. If you are a writer and you want to put that on paper and you think it can help people by them reading it, if you take what's inside of you and you put that on paper, I guarantee you that the people who are supposed to pick it up will. I remember I had a call back in January of this year with a CEO of a company who called me because he picked up my book, and he said that he was learning things from it. And mind you, I didn't write this for CEOs. I didn't write this for bishops and pastors. I didn't write this for football coaches. I wrote this for football players, and it has found its way into the hands of people who needed what was inside of me. So there is somebody out there who needs what's inside of you. So just put it on paper, and I guarantee you the people who are supposed to pick it up will pick it up.
I love it. Well, all of your information is on the screen. Go and follow these amazing authors. You can follow George Moore. You can follow Lawrence Scott at Real Lawrence Scott. You can follow Lanita at Cami Over 40. You can follow Bishop Joel Trout at Joel Trout 96. You can order all of their titles on Amazon.com. You can go to their, once you connect with them on social media, you can find their individual websites in order to connect with them. I highly suggest that you make them a part of your reading list. And I also highly suggest that if you are an aspiring art author, I can talk. If you are an aspiring author and you're not quite sure what to do in order to get started, I have an amazing e-course. So You Think You're a Writer. We go over great organizational tips, grammar tips, helping you find your voice, discover your message, distill it, and then distribute it. We want to get your voice out there, your story out there, because you never know who needs you to write. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of this Writer's Block podcast. I love and appreciate each of you so very much. You all have a great night. We love you, and we're praying for you. Stay safe.